big an altar boy because I love when everyone looks at me when I get to hold the Bible.
Sound speeds.
Are we rolling?
I'm rolling.
Hey, welcome to Backsliders. We're here today with our friend Nikki McKenzie.
Hi.
Thanks
How
for
are
coming
you?
over.
Oh, good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Very
You're
good.
welcome.
Are you confused looking back and forth? Other people have said this, and so I guess we have to like cheat forward.
No, it's just...
Are we surrounding you?
No, this is great. I was just... Yeah, I'm like, look at all the cameras.
There's a lot happening
A
here.
lot happening.
A lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a regular day in our kitchen.
Yeah. Yes. This is amazing. It was so funny is I just came from this audition where I was supposed to be a podcast host. And now I'm like, oh, I totally didn't play that right.
But now you're a podcast host.
No, this looks great. I think I played it wrong anyway. I should have been.
I don't
more
know
like
if we
you guys.
know what a podcast
Yeah, no,
host
I
is.
I think
Just
you
figuring
guys.
it out.
No, I think this is it.
We can't even control our animals who always like to make an appearance in the background.
Aw.
You know, always learning. That's
yeah,
what we're doing.
yeah. Hopefully the microphones don't pick it up that much, but
Yeah.
just slightly.
She's a wild thing. But okay, thanks for coming on. You guys go way back, which is interesting because you're probably the person we've known, or I guess you've known the longest that we've had on the podcast. Most of the people have been new
exciting.
friends.
I think so.
So how did you guys meet?
We met through a friend.
Yes, my ex-boyfriend
Yes.
Matthew Albright.
Was a friend I went to college with and also acted with in various ways and
I'm laughing because Micah was in a film
yes.
that Matt wrote that I was like supposed to be in originally.
It was based. Wait,
It
I don't
was-
know.
wait.
There was a character written
No,
with
her
your
name was Nikki. No, because
Her name wasn't
he's
Nikki.
probably gonna watch this podcast. Hi, Matt, love you.
Hey,
Yeah, we love you. We love you, man.
Yeah, we do love you.
But anyway, it's just funny too because the time now it's like all water under the bridge. It was all,
Right.
but at
Sure.
the time, like when you're going through a breakup and like he'd started writing the movie when we were together, and I was like very encouraging of that.
Yeah.
And there was
And you were gonna be in it.
I was going to be in it. So there was his girlfriend's character her name was Nikki.
Which is your name?
Correct. And so then it was like kind of heartbreaking because when we broke up, like all of our friends went to go shoot this movie, but I was no longer allowed to be in it.
Yeah, you were excluded.
For obvious
That
reasons.
does hurt.
Yeah, it kind of sucks.
But
then
you
it
were
was-
never really salty, or was there a salty season?
I think no, it wasn't salty. I definitely was like upset about the movie, but it was never. I've never even talked to him about it.
Maybe you guys will talk after.
But yeah, we're totally cool. He has a baby now. Hi, Matt.
yeah.
Like, I'm so in love with my
Yeah.
man. It's everything worked out perfectly, and we were totally friendly afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only salty thing where I was because then a
Yeah.
friend of mine ended up getting that part
Yeah.
randomly. But it's like you see, like I saw like Micah and JR. There were all these people that I was friends with. Like, and when you date someone, you become friends with that crew.
Yeah.
And they were all like in Texas together, like
Yeah.
filming and having the time of their lives. And I was like, cool.
Aw, FOMO.
Missing.
It was
The
sad.
thing that is what interesting to me is what the topic of the movie was about, right? 'Cause
Yeah, it's very
was-
fitting.
Especially for what we're with this podcast.
Yeah. It was called The Eves. Mm-hmm. Still out there.
Mike is great in it, guys.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah. Very charming.
Evil.
Charming.
And evil.
And it's essentially about Nikki corrupting Matt. No.
Yeah, exactly. Well, are we getting into it? Yeah, because it was about how my character like wanted to have sex with her boyfriend, right?
How dare she?
Yes. And then these men killed all these women for not being virginal.
Our
because-
father like raised us to infiltrate society and like bait women back to the farm and like murder these Eves
because they were sexual.
And they wanted to like
they wanted to
have sex.
procreate.
Yeah.
How dare they?
Yeah. Or not even procreate, just like enjoy their sexuality.
Yes.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because it also mirrored our relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life
Did I ever tell you
imitating
this?
life. Yeah, no, a little bit.
I do. Yeah. It's. I mean, whatever. Because we at the time.
Well, this is that feeling of backsliders that he was experiencing.
Right.
It was like my internal urge is to do this, but my religious dogma says no.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it must be your fault.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, it actually was what was happening in our relationship because I did want want to have sex.
Yeah.
And
it's a part of a relationship.
Totally.
He
so
did
we
too.
were like, he did too, but like, it
I
was
think
like
so,
weird.
Matt. I'm sorry.
I mean, I don't know. But we did try to be abstinent. Like,
yeah.
Seasonally abstinent.
Exactly. It was like, seasonally abstinent is a nice way. Yeah. It was like, unless you were partying.
And you got too drunk that you
It's a 3-drink
Exactly.
night, babe.
Yeah. Which I think like at the time was worse because then it was all of a sudden like not about love. It was about like when we're fucked up, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I think that does like, because
that was the only time like, I guess for him, he was able to get over the shame of it. Which shame is such a powerful feeling that a lot of times comes from religious dogma.
Totally.
I don't know your background really.
So I grew up Catholic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you guys go to mass like regularly?
Like every Sunday.
Wow.
All girls Catholic high school.
Whoa.
Actually, Catholic school pretty much my whole life.
Uniform,
the whole thing. Like my mom's super religious. Like she's from the Philippines and very like to this day she thinks that I met my fiance because she prayed.
It did.
And maybe
she's a part of it.
Yes, she's a part of it. Yeah. So I'm such a weird hodgepodge because I feel like I'm definitely spiritual, but I wouldn't. And I grew up Catholic, and I pray a lot. I pray to like God, but
I gotta get on that.
It really helps for me. But I'm also like real woo woo too. Like I'm really open to reincarnation, and I'm into spirituality. I love yoga. I don't think that so I guess where I'm not Christian in the sense of like, I don't think you have to be a certain religion to go to heaven. Like, I don't think that makes you a good person. Does that make sense? Where I think I choose, I'm very aware now that, because my fiance is atheist. So I'm very aware now that it's I
think atheism requires just as much faith as religion.
Oh, that you do. Okay, that's interesting.
I think it's just as like arrogant.
Yeah, I get that totally. Well, I guess I kind of feel very like I agree with that quote. Like Mark says, like religion is the opium of the masses. Like I can see how religion can control people and how it can be used, to kind of keep. How it can be used, how at that time it could have been used to maybe control people, right? Like
keep order
and stay in your place. Hierarchy. I can see all of that.
Yeah.
But I also think faith does a lot of beautiful, wonderful things. But whatever religion.
Right.
So I guess the way that I see it is like, I feel like it's all the same stuff. Like to me, God is the same. Buddha, God, Yahweh.
Right.
They're all the same. I guess I just, and I know that I don't know. I feel more comfortable praying to a God that's more Christian, but I wouldn't say that I think Jesus Christ was necessarily God. Like I don't. That's where I'm.
Right. Is the only way.
Or is the only way. Yeah.
God.
Like it's strange because like I do pray to like a Christian God.
Yeah.
But I feel like I believe in like a loving God. Does that make sense? So,
absolutely. I relate.
How do you think about a Christian God when you're praying though?
So that's weird. I do. I guess I do.
But what does that look? Why? So how does it? Because I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like my mom would always say like, their God, like, because I always asked the question as a kid, like, well, like how is, Islam God and the Jewish God and all these other gods, like it's all God. Like we don't get to parse God out in these different, and essentially your answer was like, yeah, we do. And our God is the right one,
Right.
Like all these other gods are false gods or whatever. But I don't know how to personally compartmentalize that in my head.
Well, I agree. Well, and that was my whole thing. It's like, how does anyone know? Right?
Yeah.
How does anyone know that this is the right God? Like
definitively.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I feel a bigger presence. I do think like things happen for a reason. I feel like the presence of something greater than me that's like been in my life instrumentally. But I think I'm just comfortable in being like, well, I don't fucking know. Like,
right.
Like it's just.
That's what it feels like. That's what religion feels like to me, is like this God that is not necessarily comprehensible to our minds.
Yeah.
Funneled down through different funnels.
Yes.
And then humans being like, well, my funnel is the only way to get to this big thing, but it's just all these different funnels that are going to that.
That's exactly how I see it too. Yeah. And that makes sense to me because I think at the end of the
Christianity one is pretty blocked by their belief that Christ
it has to be Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Right.
Jesus.
So that's where I think I'm confusing because like we went to, there's something about going into a Catholic church to me that's like still so beautiful, and
it is very beautiful
and calming. I think maybe because I grew up in that, you know? So even if I'm like really sad or I'm really happy, there are times where like I'll just go to mass by myself.
Yeah.
Just to be in church. But it's the same thing where I'm also like, I don't like the part of religion where it's like, oh, if you're homosexual, you aren't a good person. Right. If you're whatever, you know, what all of the
judgment and condemnation and these are the rules. And if you're outside of the rules, then God like withholds his love from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which that doesn't make sense to me.
Too. I don't want to believe in a God that would withhold love from certain people.
Correct. Because I feel like especially when I think about Jesus, like, because I do believe Jesus existed as a person. I think like historically, there's proof of that. I don't know that, you know, I don't know where I'm at with like the whole, maybe he's the son of God, but then also maybe like Buddha too. I don't know. But, you know, he hung out with like prostitutes and, you know, watched people. Like he seemed like the coolest hippie, like that guy. If Jesus is like truly like God, all of that other shit doesn't make sense to me of like, oh, you know, condemn these people.
I don't think he told anybody they were going to hell.
I don't think he did either. Like,
so if like he's the model,
right? This like the loving
modeling when we're.
Yeah, he said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." Yeah. That was like his message, which is love everyone.
But a lot of people hate themselves, so. You know.
I guess that's true. Yeah,
and I think,
but I think it's that thing that like wants us to be like, well, I hate this thing about me that I feel like is a sinful thing, and so I'm gonna project it onto people around me. And if they have something that I don't understand about them, that my book I think says, or this guy told me says that they're evil, then I'm gonna project it on them even 10 times more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, I think hurt people.
Sure.
So it's like when people are being hateful and judgmental or condemning others, there is something going on in them that is not aligned with love, that they maybe feel that other people are doing that to them or there's something wrong with them, and so they have to give that to others. Like every bully is like a victim in some way, you know what I mean?
Well, sure. Exactly. It's their own hurt. It's their own like demon, you know. It's their, I think too, I know because I work with kids sometimes with my other job, but it's so interesting because they talk about like bullying a lot. And just as an adult, when you look back at bullying, I think so much of it is just your own shit. It's like, it's a kid who has something bad going on at home, you know, whatever that may be, whether it's like your parents are getting a divorce or you're fighting with your sister, whatever it is, there's there's deeper stuff that's going on.
And they just happen to be a big guy too.
Right.
I was mean. I was mean to a couple girls when I was in elementary school. My parents were getting a divorce, and like this one girl had common interests with me, and I was like so mad. I felt like she was copying me, and I was so mean to her. Yeah. And like the last few years, like going through therapy, I was able to like see that experience through her lens and be like, man, I was just like lashing out at her. It had nothing to do with her. It was because I was so hurt and didn't have an outlet or like the awareness to know what was going on because I was just a kid.
Because you were probably like outletting it, right? Yeah. Like it wasn't even about her, it's about you.
Exactly.
It's your own stuff.
Like I needed to express that anger and she was there. And that's it.
That's really awesome that you were able to like embrace that and realize that's what it was.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable to like realize that you hurt people.
Yeah.
But it's a part of like having empathy for others is when you like, it's so easy to like write people off who don't agree with you or who are being hateful as just like assholes. Like that's it. But the reality is like, it's gray. Like we all have the ability to hurt each other. We all have bad days. We all have the ability to be like selfish and unempathetic. And so if we have to realize that about ourselves so that we can have compassion for others.
That's so true.
It's challenging in those moments of like it coming up, you know?
Yeah, because you have to like kind of take a pause and like step back.
It's like right now in this moment, you're being extremely mean and insensitive and unempathetic and rude.
Yeah.
But I know behind that is a sad person.
Yeah, totally.
Who needs a lot of love.
What was that book? There was a story about like this guy on the New York train. It was in a book, but whatever. And his kids are going crazy like around him on the train, and he's not doing anything. And they're being very obnoxious like on the train with like the people on the subway. And so finally somebody said, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, get your kids under control. Like, this is rude, because the guy was doing nothing. And then he said, My wife just died. I'm so sorry. I can't. And I was like, it's so interesting. I always think about that shit because it's like, I can get real like feisty about things.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's rude to me or whatever, or maybe I'm rude. But it's again, you don't know where someone's coming from, right?
Exactly.
So it changes the complete perspective if somebody turning to you and be like, I'm so sorry. I just, I lost my wife and I can't. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, it's also this thing. It's like, maybe there are people that are so hurt that they're always that way or 99% of the time that way. But usually everyone has those moments that they are loving somebody else and somebody is loving them. So it's like, oh, you are lovable.
Totally.
Somebody loves you. This isn't really you. You're that lovable person. Just something's really triggering you right now. Right. And it might be me.
Yeah.
Or not even you at all. Like maybe it could be taken out at you, but then like maybe it was something completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
But religion is like such a it is a weird thing because I really do believe in something bigger.
Yeah.
But I believe in God but I know that's like such a trigger word for some people. I feel like
God.
Right. Yeah, God. It is. Sometimes I'll be like universe.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So what would
Higher
your
source.
definition of God be? Not that you have to have one, but like, and how has that changed from what you were told the definition of God was in the Catholic Church?
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, so like I grew up, very conservative. So yeah, I believe like, Jesus Christ is the Son of God, died and rose in 3 days. Exactly. All of that stuff. Confession, priests, the whole thing. Mother Mary, rosaries. Like we had titas that would like you'd have to do the rosary every Sunday as a family, like that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I remember like trying to decide what I would tell the priest that I would confess.
Yeah.
So you would confess even if you were like, I gotta come up with something.
Exactly. Like I gotta come up with something because
I don't feel bad about anything. Yeah. So.
Well, that we sometimes some weeks for sure, but other weeks I was like, I didn't do anything.
Well, confession's weird. Like I grew up holiday only Catholic, so we went like normally it was like big holidays, but sometimes we would just go on a regular Sunday. But I kind of remember that feeling too as a kid of just you're like racking your brain. Okay, like what sin did I do recently that because you have to say something,
right? You have to say something, and then you feel like you're doing like you want to be a good student and be like, otherwise you're sitting in that. It's almost like a coffin, like you're sitting in that weird box.
Would you open it so the priest could see you?
I'm trying to remember
because that's a choice. You like either open it or you leave it closed. Like you can.
No, I think I left it closed.
Yeah.
I also don't like weird older men. I was like,
looking at you and hearing if you had a dirty thought or
I definitely. I guess I did keep the thing closed.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's interesting. I don't ever remember having to like pray. Like I guess in the way I was raised, I didn't have confession, so that would be
you were
like
Christian.
You were Christian.
Well, it was. I had this conversation.
My family would definitely talk as if Catholicism was not Christian,
because they
like
think,
like it was
idolatry. Because you pray to like you don't just pray to God, you pray to Mary and saints. Like that's part of the Catholic faith.
Right.
Micah grew up in a cult though, like straight up.
You did?
Well, I grew up in a splinter of a cult. Yeah.
What's the cult?
It's called The Way, and that's where my parents met.
The Way International.
Oh, wow.
Like Google it, look it up on YouTube. It still exists.
In the 70s and 80s, it was bigger than like the Hare Krishna and the Moonies. But it's like since then, like now it's like 2,000 people. But my parents left in the 80s. So right when I was like born, they left and started their own church. But it was essentially
a cult as well.
I mean, it was the same teachings, but my dad wasn't assaulting women. So
cult, you know, like it's kind of an ingredient.
So my dad was like, I gotta leave there. So it was interesting though, like they felt like everything that they taught was true, even though. So what made it a cult was that they're not a Trinitarian believing church.
Oh, interesting.
So they don't believe that Jesus Christ was God.
Okay.
Which kind of like you could understand.
Yeah, for sure.
But yet they still believe, you know, Jesus Christ was the Son of God, did die, and you have to believe that, and he was raised 3 days later in order to go to heaven. So they still definitely hold true to a lot of mainstream Christian beliefs, but where they part is the Trinity. And then some other like random translations of like how many people were next to Christ when he died, and like was it on a tree and not a cross? Like my parents are like, it wasn't a cross, it was just a straight up and down tree. And it's just like, why are you hung up on these like ridiculous things?
But like,
it's like it's important.
That is interesting.
The truth is important.
Their thing was that they interpreted the Bible correctly. I think that's pretty much every like different sect of Christianity is like, we got it right.
What I don't like, we've done research since then, is like that was part of this guy's way of creating exclusivity. Was by saying like, oh, the Bible wasn't translated correctly, and it probably wasn't. And God has blessed me with, he was going to reveal the true interpretations and
so buy my class for $9.99.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically what happened.
And we're kind of like elite Christians.
So do they believe that only their sect of Christians goes to heaven, or all?
My parents would never taught me that like other sects of Christians weren't going to heaven. They would just believe that like, you know, 10% of what they were teaching was wrong, but it wasn't preventing them from heaven.
From heaven. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the part I guess I really don't like about Christianity. Because I guess
the heaven and hell
is that, well, or it's just that you have to believe in this to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess the hell part of it too, of like saying like,
but without it doesn't exist. I mean, that's also what makes it a cult in its own right. It's just not a cult because it's so widely spread.
Right.
It's still an exclusive group just by the fact that they're like, you have to believe at least this one thing. Well, it's like, why? Well, they're like, because if not, then you're not in our group. Right. Which is the definition of a cult.
Right.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
But, you know, that's a strong statement coming from one guy who could get sniped, right? And, you know? Like
but anyway, we interrupted you kind of saying how you went on this journey to where you are now with God from Catholicism. So you would go to confession and say stuff.
I was like really pretty conservative. Like I grew up like I would write notes to Jesus and I would like hide them all over the house.
For him.
So to find like the tooth fairy? Yeah. Jesus the tooth fairy?
That's so sweet.
Actually, my first like I was an altar boy, so girl. But I
lots changed.
But I remember when I was doing it, which was a big clue. I was going to be an actor, but I was like, I love being an altar boy because I love when everyone looks at me when I get to hold the Bible.
It's a very important role in mass.
Yeah, but then you like
loved
costume. And your costume, exactly, your costume. And I remember like thinking like I wanted to in the smoke. I was like, I would love to like give a sermon. Like also just because to time. Exactly. So very religious. And then I guess when I think it started to shift when I came to LA and went to college. Because then I hadn't met a gay person until I went to college. And I have so many wonderful gay friends.
I did. But yeah, a theater teacher, of course. And then like one other kid in school was like clearly out. But it was like, not, I don't know, it was weird. It was like out to certain people, but not out in general. Yeah. So you like, but he wasn't like in my friend group.
Okay. Yeah. So I think like, and I don't, so there were all these things that started happening where I started questioning like a lot of things. I was like, that's bullshit to me. Like, I don't think any race, religion, sexual orientation is going to, that doesn't make you go to hell. Like, you know, I think if you're a good person, you're a good person. Like that was my biggest, I think when I started to really separate from religion.
Yeah.
And then I think just like, I remember like history classes where I was learning about like how religion kind of was able to keep poor people poor, you know? So,
and it's responsible for wars and things
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
And the killing and the judgment, you know, all of that stuff. So I think I really like had a few years away from it. Like right when I met Matt I was still kind of like more towards the Christian side because I was on board with the abstinence thing.
You're like, I think you're right.
I was like, I don't know. Yeah, because I was guilty all the time, which was like so Catholic.
Yeah.
And then I totally went away from it. And then I think I came back. I just like needed something. Like I missed community. So I went to Christian church. They don't even call it mass. Christian church.
Yeah, just
and I loved it. Yeah, non-denominational. Yeah. And I loved it there. Like
which is like Matt's probably background, I think.
Yes. And I remember like because where I grew up in the Bay Area, it was like pretty homogenous, like very Asian and white. So when I went to the church here, it was so diverse, and it was like the first time I had ever seen a choir have a wonderful voice. Like, a lot of wonderful Black people. And I was like, I like this church. This is where I belong.
They can sing.
They can actually sing because like Catholic church is like, and they're
this is Jessica Simpson up there.
Exactly. But they're usually kind of like high or flat. So it's always like, it never sounds good. Like the first Christian church I came out to out here was like, it felt like, it was like at a theater. It was Mosaic was like,
Mosaic. Yeah.
It felt like a concert. And there were all of these like people, lots of different colors, and the music was amazing. So I was really drawn to that. And I still go to the Christian church sometimes. I think, sometimes I get turned off by like all of the money that they ask for, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would go in between like.
It costs a lot of money to rent a theater. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. And for your band.
Drive a Teslas ain't cheap. You know what I
mean? Yeah. But then I started going to like also Buddhist. When my girlfriend goes to Buddhist church is what she calls it. So I'll go with her to that. So I guess
what's that like?
Yeah.
I've never
been. We should go. It's actually close to here. It's like
I think our other friend has been
by
to
the ice cream place on Melrose, Helio or what's
maybe.
Anyway, I don't know if it's actually called. I don't think it's actually called Buddhist church, but it's great. It's basically like somebody comes up and they read part of like the Buddhist scripture, and then they just start a conversation, almost like a sermon about like. No, I'm sorry. First, you meditate for like 25 minutes as a group. So you walk into a room with like all these pillows on the floor, and you sit and you meditate. And then afterwards, there's a big group discussion about whatever the teacher wants to highlight that day.
That's cool.
And you can speak if you want to. You don't have to speak if you don't.
Do they ask for money?
And they don't ask for money. There's a donation basket.
Yeah.
And so I give, and there's just something that turns me off when it's this, like.
When they preach about it.
A little bit. Yeah. And then it feels very kind of very Hollywood sometimes.
You want to give when somebody, when this community is like bringing nourishment to you.
Offering a service.
Right.
But when you're getting that hard sell, it's like, now I don't want to. Yeah, now I feel unnourished.
Yes, it feels fake. There's something fake about it as opposed to like.
Or desperate even to some degree. But like.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like, are you insecure about what you're providing here? Because if you just were secure with what you were providing here, we would like freely give.
Right.
You'd get a lot more probably.
Totally.
Maybe. But maybe they know the analytics and they're like, actually, if you don't call to action, they don't do anything.
Yeah. It's always so ironic to me, though. It's like this really sweet scripture or whatever, like sermon. And then all of a sudden it's like all the baskets come out and it,
Right.
Which you're right. They need to they need to thrive somehow, right? I guess they need the money, but.
Yeah, I don't know. But then also like Jesus, he went in and flipped tables around when they were like
making money off
of church or the temple, whatever it was at the time. So it's kind of weird. I mean, there's a lot of things like that in organized religion and Christianity where you're like, it doesn't quite add up with what I think your touchstone should be, which is but But there's also good that comes out of it, like community.
There's so much good. Yeah. Like I can feel, I mean,
it's almost like being a career politician leads to like just not really fighting for what's right. So like maybe being a career pastor doesn't serve the church. No, like maybe a volunteer, you know, but people are like, well, who's going to study the Bible as hard as me? Like, I don't know. Maybe that should be a community discussion, and maybe it shouldn't just be one guy or
that is like has all the power. Yeah, that feels like a kingdom, like a king,
monarchy.
Right? Yeah. Like a monarchy.
Maybe it should be more of a discussion space. They're like, well, this is enough for discussion.
Well, part of me feels like we'll get to heaven. And God's like, joke's on you guys. Like, this is what it is. And everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. Here. That all makes sense. Yeah.
It's interesting. When my dad, the last couple years of his life, and my dad was a pastor, and he obviously had non-mainstream Christian beliefs, but he always believed in heaven and hell. But in the last couple of years of his life, he stopped believing in hell.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I don't, I think that, people say like when you're facing your own mortality, like maybe enlightenment kind of is forced upon us. And when you see it and feel it coming in slow motion, you kind of get to experience it and maybe communicate it to the people around you a little bit.
Right.
If you're open to that. And my dad was definitely very open to talking about religion, and he didn't ever lose his Christian foundation, but that's another thing that would like not be, I mean, there are like churches that don't believe in hell, but they're definitely considered to not be Christian churches by...
Did he say why he came to that conclusion?
He did, and I wish I remember the scripture. Something about God wanting eternal life for all his children. And then, my dad coming to the realization, well, if like he wanted that, then he could freely give that. And that's what grace is about. It's not conditional to this prayer that isn't in the Bible, but every church knows this prayer. Like if you say this prayer, you're going to heaven, and they all try to like hard sell you to say it so that they can be your friend and that you're in the club now and you can go proselytize other people to get in the club.
Right.
I guess my dad was just more along the lines of like, like everybody is beautiful in God's eyes and is going to receive the same treatment.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, that kind of stuff is like the kind of God I believe in.
Yeah.
Just a loving God.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that people want to like define it.
Right.
Because nobody knows. I mean, that is like the biggest, that's the only thing we can say.
Preach.
Exactly. Is that we don't know. So to say like, these are the rules and this is what happens in X, Y, and Z, it's still like, it's easier for me to just be like, I believe in God. I know God exists. It's a loving God. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we die after this. Like there's a part of me that kind of is interested in reincarnation. There's parts of that make sense to me. I feel like there is like a heaven or a nirvana. Like I think at some point, like I believe in like I guess something right now I'm thinking about a lot is like soul's journeys. Like this idea that we come here to learn something. And if we don't, we keep coming back.
Right.
That kind of resonates with me.
That does. Although, why didn't we know it when we came here the first time? Like where were we that we were like, because if we were part of Source before we came here, wasn't Source like some sense of like perfect connection with God? So then what did coming here have to teach us other than like appreciation of like, how good Source is? Go check out that human existence, which is also great too.
Totally. But I think like the both can, I think both can exist in a way. Like,
I hope so.
If you go back home to God, your father, your home or whatever, I feel like you're still the same soul, right? So if the soul hasn't evolved, maybe you go back to keep learning.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a part of that makes it like, I don't know. There's something that resonates with me about like coming here to learn a lesson. But I don't think things are learned every time. Right. So
sure.
Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you get frozen in your beliefs.
Yeah. I guess
like we've seen the examples around us in our lives where like, hey, you haven't ever changed since I remember you.
Right,
you know, like,
right. Well, and I think too, there's just weird things that'll like. Do you ever meet people and you're like, oh, I know you, or this feels like when my fiance and I started dating, it was like I knew I was weird. I like knew on the first date. I was like, holy shit. The moment he kissed me, I was like, I'm done. This is it.
Did you vibrate?
I didn't vibrate, but everything like everything stopped. Like it was like it was almost like a movie where everything is kind of in slow motion, and then you feel like
it's like overwhelming.
So maybe more like a whoosh, like a whoosh, like a whoosh.
It was just like, oh shit, I'm here now.
Well, I was like
everything
okay,
ever hoped for it. Like I know it happened now.
Yeah, like hey you, and so then it was this weird thing. When we first started dating, I used to have, and it was going wonderfully. Obviously we're engaged, but I kept having these horrible nightmares about him dying brutally, constant, and there was always like a bullet wound or a sword. He was always a soldier, so sometimes he was a knight, sometimes he was a soldier. Most of the time, he was a
dreams.
soldier. Oh, super vivid, and every time it was so weird. He would come to me at the end of the dream like dying and bloody, like nasty, and instead of I would be fucking angry. Like in the gym I was like, fuck you, like
how dare you die.
Yeah, how dare you die. And it was always about honor. Like it was always like it was the feeling
is dishonorable,
of like,
you know that
kind of, or like he went for honor and I said don't go, like you left me kind of thing. Anyway, I told him this when we were like a little high, and I was like, I keep having these like recurring dreams about you. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm so happy in our relationship. I don't know what this means. And he started laughing and he was like, huh. And I was like, what? And he goes, well, I've had bloody dreams of me being a soldier since I was a child.
What? I just got chills.
That's weird, right? And so then I'm not even kidding. I looked at him and I was like, oh, so we've done this before. And he was like, yeah. And that's it. And then I've never had the dream again.
I have goosebumps. I'm tingling.
Isn't that weird?
That is
so you
weird
think
and
that you were his love in the life that he died as a soldier?
He must have been. I feel like we've done this before. Like that's such a weird thing to say.
Yeah, no, it's not. Like,
but how fucking weird? Like since he was a kid, or you are?
Yeah.
I'm so into that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about mine.
Well, we can send you some links to some
weird shit we've watched. We should all go do one of those
past life regressions.
I did one of those, and I will totally do it. Yes.
How'd it go?
It was cool. It was really cool. It was weird.
Yeah.
But so this was interesting. We should go here. The regression place was a nun ran it. It was at a church. Like? Exactly. I remember like this is the craziest thing. Like we were in a room in a church in Pasadena.
Wow.
And with a nun.
Was she like dressed like a nun?
She wasn't dressed like a nun.
But she was like, I'm sister so and so?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Wow.
I guess that doesn't really make her a nun though. Maybe she
she could be like
Mormon?
I'm trying to remember.
I don't know, just maybe some Eastern nun. I don't know.
Maybe.
Is there an Eastern nun?
I have no idea.
We're not very knowledgeable about nuns.
No, I'm pretty sure she was either a nun or was a past nun. But either way, it was in a church. Like that was in a Catholic church.
Yeah.
Which was like the strangest.
Well, they'll take money any way they can get it. You know what I mean? They'll film. They'll film sacrilegious movies.
Like a thing.
You do have to tell us about that because I've looked it up and it's like hundreds of dollars.
No, this was like $15. Like she was super cool, man. She was like this older lady.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Way before I met Ryan, but
was it like a one-time thing or was it like people were going there like weekly?
I think people were going there weekly, but I went with a girlfriend like once.
Yeah.
But that was like have you guys ever done it?
Mm-mm.
No.
It's interesting. Like they'll walk you through like
I've been raised to be terrified of things like that, although I've done crazier things.
It's just like a regular meditation.
Yeah.
Do you meditate?
Yeah, we meditate.
So, it's just like a regular guided meditation. And the way they do it, which I thought was really interesting, is they have you like go down staircases. So you in your mind, you keep going down staircases and I think you got on like a spaceship and you traveled somewhere. But what was weird was she had you look at your feet. So she'd be like, she'd land you, I think, in the spacecraft. And she'd be like, you're outside in nature in your favorite place. So whatever you want. And then she says to look at your feet.
Wow.
And that was weird because every life, your feet were different like that. But that was the first thing you saw. She would like guide you, like it would be one life. And then she'd say, look at your feet. And I think 2 of the lives that I saw, I was men. I was male. And then there was 1, I was the female.
That's so cool.
2, I was a female. Actually, it was 4. So, but yeah, that was weird because I was like, I have men's feet. Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
like,
who am I?
Yeah, and then you just kind of it felt like a video game a little bit. Like you're just walking the way and you see kind of everything first person.
Whoa,
that's fascinating.
But you like felt it.
I totally felt it. Like I remember one of like the strongest ones. I was like in a circus. And I was like a tightrope walker. I mean, who fucking knows, guys? Maybe I'm. But yeah.
You felt like you were there.
I was there. But it was interesting because I was like, oh, in this life, the whole purpose of this life was to learn the importance of community. Because like this
Not
person.
Balance?
Not balance. Because this person was very alone, but it was like it was like this bearded lady. And like it was just a lot of different, like this, a tiger handler, I guess. But the idea was like this band of like misfits was my family.
That's beautiful.
That was, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We have to let you go because you have to go to a fitting. But thank you so much for being on.
Yes.
We'll have you on again because you have a lot more stories. I want to hear more about the regressions.
We should do it.
Yeah,
and then
we should.
Yes,
we can come back
and then we'll report back.
Yeah. We'll tell you how it goes. Do you want to tell people how to find you if they want to follow you?
Nikita Banana 17 on Instagram,
and we'll tag her and all of that stuff.
Nikki McKenzie. If you look at Nikki McKenzie on my shit, it'll come up. I'm sure.
Yeah,
she's everywhere.
I'm in your dreams.
Can't miss her. Thanks for listening and watching.
Peace.
Bye.
No, I'm not saying that it wasn't real. I'm just saying that you made me feel bad. Don't try making me a better deal. I'm done with you and I'm fine with that, and that's bad.